5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now it's time for As the Heel Turns. With Goz, Vinny, Zach Bai, and the Tig Man.
We are back with another episode. It's episode 2, the top 5 matches of all time. If you're watching wrestling, WWE, WWF, WCW, the NWA, who knows where this list is going to go today? I am Goz, joined by the Tig Man, Zach Bai, Vinny. We have our lists for you. And if you might have missed our last list, go back, check it out, YouTube, find out what we were arguing about last time. We'll get talking about what we're going to talk about on our next edition. But first, the top 5 wrestling matches of all time. I'm going to start with number 5 on my list. It's WrestleMania 21. It's not the main event. And I call this one Wrestler versus Wrestler. Maybe the greatest professional wrestler performer of all time versus the greatest straight up, let's wrestle each other on a mat of all time. Kurt Angle versus Shawn Michaels. And I went back and watched this match the other day. And we're talking about probably Shawn Michaels out of the prime of his career, not the HBK mid-90s. We're talking later 2000s. But Kurt Angle is jacked out of his mind. Like, he's got the shaved head in this. He's ripped. So when you could say, hey, you tell somebody who doesn't watch wrestling, we're going to put an Olympic gold medalist, the greatest maybe true athlete in the ring against maybe the greatest true performer, and they live up to the hype. That was my number 5 match here.
That was HBK's prime, just saying.
You don't think it was? Like, that's post-back surgery, though.
Wait, no, that's not HBK's prime.
No, like mid-90s.
He had a better second half of his career than his second half was better. Way better. Way better.
He wasn't the man of the corporation. He wasn't the guy driving the bus back then. It was other guys like Austin and Rock.
But what I'm
and
saying,
Angle.
the second half of his career was better than the first.
In terms of what?
Match quality.
No way.
I don't know. I think he was better with Marty Jannetty with the Rockers. Come on.
Ladies and gentlemen, there's a dinosaur in the room.
Wait, I want to get more into this before we hear some more matches. So you're thinking Michaels, I guess if we're a professor to college, you'd be giving him better grades on his papers than what he was doing in the 90s. He got away with just being the guy?
Yeah,
is that what it is?
And I have a reason. He was clean. He wasn't clean in the 90s. He can focus more.
And by clean, you mean not like performance and drugs. You mean
Drugs.
just like straight up drugs.
Drugs, drinking, all of that, yeah.
Okay, so WrestleMania 21, when he fights Angle here, and I agree, this is a great match. What year was this? WrestleMania 21.
2005 or 4? 2005? Okay.
Los Angeles.
Like, to me, if you ask me when Michaels... I have no beef with this match being on the list, by the way. On your list. All of our lists are going to be different. These are all subjective. These are top 5 matches. That's according to Goz. That's number 5. But I think you're crazy if you say 2005 Michaels is better than 1996 Michaels.
Hey, I'm just... 96, he had a match with Vader where Vader didn't hear him call a spot. He kicked Vader in the head because he didn't hear him.
Vader's got a big head, by the way.
Yeah.
That's
just
a big melon.
Saying.
He was a little bit messed up in those days. That's
what
true.
about Iron Man matches, ladder matches? Maybe that's where he made his career. Michaels wouldn't have been an 05 Michaels without a 96 Michaels.
Right. What I'm saying, basically, I think he had... You look from 2002 to 2010, look at the feuds he had. He had Jericho, multiple with Triple H. He had one with Randy Orton. All of these names, Kurt Angle, Undertaker... Multiple matches with each of them. From 91, let's say 91, like when he broke off with Jannetty, to 98. I can name some good matches, but not nearly as many as the second half of his career.
Well, I'll tell you this. This is what I'll say. We're talking about a true all-time great if we're arguing and we're splitting hairs between these.
Yeah.
It's almost like,
over a decade.
So Goz and I are in the sports world. This is how we talk about Kobe Bryant. You know, which Kobe was better when he was number 8 for those first 9 or 10 years when he's winning championships with Shaq, or when he went to number 24 and he's winning other multiple championships and MVP. When you can have a legitimate discussion like we're having Michaels,
one of the best of all time,
then you know we're talking about, and some folks, he is the best of all time.
So does anyone else have Shawn Michaels, I guess, either in that 2000 to 2010 range or even early 90s Shawn Michaels on their list?
I've got Shawn Michaels on my list. I've got Shawn Michaels as an honorable mention.
I've got him.
Does anyone have him at 5 on their list, or 5 or 4 spot?
What was the year? I forget the year again, but the Iron Man match is on here.
1996.
Shawn Michaels.
WrestleMania 12.
What a match.
In Anaheim.
That was number 3 on my list.
Number 3 on
It was
your
a great
list.
match. Right? I mean,
oh, yeah.
I mean, that was incredible.
60
Going
minutes.
in 60 minutes, those guys.
And then overtime, I think, if I'm not mistaken, because neither one got a pinfall or submission in
Should I blow my load right now?
Absolutely. Do it.
Where's the rag?
So he's got number 3. Tigsman's got number 3.
I'm taking off my sock.
Uh-oh.
Dreamcatcher.
Iron Man match is the greatest match of all time.
Wow. That match right there, Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels.
Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels, WrestleMania 12 in Anaheim is the best wrestling match I've ever seen. It's number 1 on my list, and here's why. You have 2 of the best to ever do it. I think 2 of the top 5 greatest wrestlers of all time. And they're both in their prime. And it's at the highest point that the business has to offer. So when I think of WrestleMania moments, and a lot of it has to do with how old you were when these things are happening, how impressionable you were at this time. And I happen to be 9 years old. This comes to mind. It just hits me right in my frontal lobe. It's so good for so long. The near falls, the charisma of Michaels, the technicality of Bret, the real life feud between the two, the power struggle within the business between the two. The fact that Michaels had worked so long and it culminated to this, boyhood dream was the whole storyline.
How about the sweet chin music? Not once, but twice.
Right?
Twice. At the end, and that was it. Bret was out.
Yes,
and Shawn Michaels went for the pin.
Take some lessons, WWE. 2 finishers is enough.
Coming through the rafters, right? And I think you said it. The boyhood dream comes true.
Yes.
I have one beef about the match. What's about it. What if there were a few pinfalls? Like, just to keep and maybe it's a millennial mindset I have now that, like, I need things right away. I need quick satisfaction. That if that had gone 2 pinfalls to 2 pinfalls, so you'd see, like, 12, I know I'm really nitpicking here, but 12 minutes into the match, HBK gets a pin. 12 minutes into the match, Hart gets a pin. Now it's 2-2, and who's going to be 3? Because there hits a point, and I know it's a great match, but, like, you're 35 minutes in, and you're like, all right, something's eventually going to happen. Someone's going to pin. That's my only nitpick, and kind of why I left it off the list is that if it went 2 pins to 2 pins, it would have kept my attention more. That's the go ahead, Vinny.
I personally, I was mentioning this to you last week, Zach. This match is not on my list, and the reasoning is you can put it, and it's not that it's an hour long. We've had hour-long Broadways many times. All the ones Flair had, the ones Race had. And that's great. The hour is not where I dislike the match. And I do like it. But what makes it not get to my list is flat out, one, I feel they could have done more pinfalls. 2, if they want to go an hour, why not just do an hour match? It wasn't really an Iron Man match.
Yeah, See, yeah. I totally disagree on this front. That if you had a match that had a pinfall 12 minutes into it, I think it ruins the spirit of what these two guys were. Because if it was a normal non-Iron Man match, could you see Bret Hart or Shawn Michaels getting pinned 11, 12, 13, 15 minutes in?
Yeah.
Probably not. I think it was like it felt like, a stalemate that these two greats are, these two stalwarts, not one can get over on the other.
Yeah, exactly.
And and there was so many high spots in this thing. I remember when Michaels chin music, the referee on accident outside the ring, the moonsault when he's on the top rope to the outside of the ring, and just the way it ended. Hart has him in the sharpshooter for the last full minute, basically, of the match, and they still didn't get a result. So to me, I don't think a match. And I'm sure there's others you could point to and you could connect the dots and say, hey, this match has this and the Iron Man doesn't. But to me, I don't think a match could ever supplant the main event of WrestleMania 12.
And that's interesting, too, because it's the WrestleMania part of it, too. You can't kind of, and that, if it's a SummerSlam or Survivor Series, I can maybe understand why you'd want to have 2 and 2 pins. And I suggested it. But Mania, you're right. If you have a Mania pin 12 minutes into the match and it's your main event, you're like, is it over? Like, I got to wait another 48 minutes here? Like, I feel like I saw the end of what I wanted to see. Vinny, you said you had Michaels on your list as well on another match?
One second. Also, that was one of only 2 good matches on that card. So, I mean,
we weren't ranking WrestleManias, though.
Right.
No, I'm just saying.
That might make it more important, if anything,
that's
because
what I mean.
Saved the card, yeah.
Because the only other good match was Piper and Goldust and thongs and stuff.
Hollywood
Anyway,
Backlot Brawl.
yes, I do have Michaels on my list. I also have him at the number 1 position.
Ooh.
Not that match, though. And this is my co-match. I was telling you guys about this. WrestleMania 25 and 26, Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker. I can't pick which one is better because WrestleMania 25, you hear all the people say, Triple H Orton should have never main evented that show because they could not live up to that match. 26, it's a career match. The end of HBK's career. Both 40-minute matches or so, and they both were just amazing. The crowd is on their feet. Look at the entrances. Michaels came in acting as God.
He did.
At 25. That you just, to me, both of those matches, that's why I love wrestling. Because those matches, I'll never forget them. I can go back and watch them nonstop all the time. I will always catch little nuances. But just to see a career end, that alone, especially somebody like Michaels, it vaults up to the top of the list for me.
My issue with that match, and I watched it going into like this week of prepping for our top 5, and it's a good match. Crowd's into it, all that stuff. For me, as a fan of wrestling at that point, so what is that? That's 25, I'm 19, I'm 18. There was never a point where I ever thought leading up to that match and during the match that I thought The Undertaker was going to lose. I always thought the streak itself would never end, and that's why when Lesnar beat him at 30, I was stunned, like most of wrestling, WWE Universe, whatever you want to call it. I was stunned. So that's the only thing. Michaels is Mr. WrestleMania. Incredible performer. But that's what hurt that match is that when I remember watching it, I never thought, no matter how many sweet chin musics, no matter how many moves he did, he was going to lose. Now, maybe you felt differently. Maybe you thought watching that match, hey, I think he's going to lose.
I thought in the first one, Michaels could have won. As soon as you put the career on the line, you know who's going to win. Mm-hmm. But the first one, maybe it was because I was younger and more naive. Yeah, I thought that Michaels could have won. Would he? I don't know. When that point of the streak, Taker wasn't quite at 20 yet, and I don't know. The first one, yeah, but the second one, yeah, it was gonna happen. Michaels' career was gonna end.
You bring up The Undertaker. Does anybody have another Undertaker match on there? This is the guy who's
won
been
by him on mine.
Not me.
Nope. No, not me either.
Not me.
I mean, he
very phenomenal though.
Right?
He has a lot of great matches.
He's the guy who's got the most wins at WrestleMania, and none of us besides that match have him even on our top 5.
Honestly, never a big Undertaker fan. Always thought overrated in my book. Great at what he did, but I just never was really into. I actually thought he was cooler. The badass era, right? What was he?
Limp Bizkit coming out on the motorcycle?
I love that, but I thought that was the worst incarnation of him.
Just never a big fan. Love Paul Bearer though.
He was hysterical.
Oh yes, my Undertaker.
That is amazing.
That was very good.
Paul Bearer was insanely good.
If we ever need a Paul Bearer for any of the shows,
When I die,
I can be the hammer putting the nail into the casket.
Bam! When I die, I hope Zach Bye does that at my eulogy. Just does the whole thing. All right, so I have here at number 4 here on our top 5 list of best wrestling matches of all time as the Heel Turns podcast. My number 4, I think, is the most likely match to be on all of our top 5 lists. It's Savage, Steamboat, WrestleMania.
yes,
Not on my list.
I have that at number 4.
yeah.
We're going to get to Vinny's issues. I'll let one of you guys take this one of what you guys think about this match.
I've got it number 1.
Number 1.
I have memories of watching the pay-per-view at my aunt's house, sitting there on the floor. She had one of those huge TVs in the wooden cabinet.
Oh yeah,
You know, like the 100-inch TV. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Wooden cabinet. I don't
To
know how
slap
big
the
it was.
side of it to make sure the picture's not fuzzy.
She's got the pay-per-view on. We're watching it, and that was the match. You know, you got George Steele running around after Elizabeth outside the crowd of 93,173. Everybody wanted to see Hogan Andre, but there's the match that stole the show. Biggest WrestleMania, my favorite WrestleMania, favorite match. by far. And seeing Steamboat win the IC title was just amazing. Was so happy for him.
I think
right?
you could still argue that WrestleMania 3 is the greatest WrestleMania of all time.
Yeah.
I think you're well within your right to do that.
Is that because it was the biggest crowd of all that time?
I think it's all of it because
Yeah.
Andre was 15 years undefeated leading up to that point. I felt like it was the culmination of Hulkamania.
Yep.
And then you had this budding superstar in Macho Man Randy Savage with one of the greatest, probably the best wrestler at the time in Steamboat for the IC title. And that kind of, I don't remember before that the IC title being held as in high regard until then.
I agree.
But just the match itself, you talk about near falls. I mean, this like set the standard for near falls. And my favorite part of my favorite overarching point why I love this match is because there wasn't any build up to the finish. The whole match was a build up, and the finish, the small package, catches you by surprise. It's no double chin musics. It's no through a table. It's just a great freaking wrestling match that ended in classic wrestling style, and I love that.
The end is the only reason it's not higher on my list, because it felt like when I watched that, it's a great movie.
Yeah.
And at the end of the movie, you're like, ooh, it ended like that. Like, I love the first hour and a half of the movie.
Yeah.
Why did you give me that ending, man? So that's again, nitpicking. I know it's top 5 list and you have to like balance everything on this list, but that's what bumps it down a little bit for me. But Zach, you brought this up a little bit earlier. We'll probably do this throughout all the podcasts. You and I work in sports, and if you were to tell an athlete or a coach, hey, we want you to be really good at your respective sport, go watch tape, go watch film. If you are a pro wrestler and you have a trainer or whoever, they should put in this match and say, do that. Like, follow that. Try to be as good as this. And that is the tape of tapes you're going to show wrestlers working their way up.
And do you know the story of that match?
I do not. We're talking background story of it?
Well, a background story of Savage more than Steamboat. Savage laid his matches out, like spot for spot.
Right, they said he was
spot.
like a detail-oriented, like the most detail-oriented freak.
I thought I heard something like 17 pages to that match.
Oh, my goodness.
Of going through spots.
Is this while he was banging Stephanie McMahon?
I mean, she would have been like 12.
Hey, allegedly. Allegedly.
Yes.
Old enough to cross the street, old enough to get hit.
That's a really bad analogy to follow in life.
Totally kidding.
Please send all angry emails to Wolf.
Does that apply? Does that apply for cats as well?
Yeah.
Why did you leave this off your match? Because all three.
Why
of
is
us,
it not on my list?
Yeah.
To be honest, I had one of the matches I had on my list that I ended up removing was a Steamboat match. I don't think it was really either of their best matches. More so Steamboat.
In their career.
Steamboat had much better matches. Not to say that was a bad match. It wasn't. I'd say that was probably the best match of that show. I'd say that could even go down as one of the best matches of the 80s, at least in WWF. Just to me, Steamboat had a lot of really good matches with Flair. He had a lot
so which
of good
one of them's
matches
on
with
your
Austin.
list?
I ended up taking it off. I ended up replacing it.
Wait, hold on.
So
a
no
second.
Steamboat on your list.
I do not have Steamboat on my
So
list.
because you say they have other good matches, that match didn't make the list?
It also just, I like these other matches.
Vinny.
I like the other matches on my list better.
I think Vinny leans towards the newer generation.
That match
so that might
certainly,
be a
though,
little.
it could be one of my honorable mentions.
All right.
Amazing match.
So who's one of these matches? Who's one of these jokers you got in the deck here?
Oh, okay.
Let's do this. Hang on, because I like how where Zach's going with this. I feel like on our list, and Vinny, you could start with this. There is one match when you look down your list and think, all right, I don't think anyone else has this, but I love the match so much, I'm going to have to probably fight off the crowds defending myself on that match, and I'll let you do that one first. Which one do you think you're set the fire to this poor room on with us?
Well, I've got a couple, but the one that I think will, just because it was a 10-man tag.
Let's hear this.
Number 3 on my list. I've went over number 4. We'll go back to that. Number 3 on my list from Canadian Stampede, July of 1997 in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. The Hart Foundation of Bret Hart, Owen, Bulldog, Jim the Anvil Neidhart, and Brian Pillman against Steve Austin, Legion of Doom, Goldust, and Ken Shamrock.
I wish I can't even remember that match, honestly.
Neither
that
can
might have
I.
been through a time
You know
that
what?
I tuned out.
This is a classic.
Is this on your list?
I remember where I was when this happened. I was about maybe 12, 11, visiting my father down in Virginia Beach. He was in the Navy. He was stationed down in Norfolk, and he went out for the night on a Sunday night. Who the hell knows what he was doing? But to keep us at bay, he paid for the pay-per-view, and it was Canadian Stampede. Vinny,
Wow.
this is not on my list, but that match resonated with me. That is an all-time tag match.
All right,
Oh,
so
yeah.
Tig and I have never seen this. I can't remember watching that.
Want me to explain?
What makes this so good?
Well, basically, first off, Calgary. Bret Hart's hometown, Owen Hart's hometown, the Hart Foundation.
The place is on fire.
Yes, and the thing is, Bret, Owen, all of them, major heels, the biggest heels, so much heat in America. The moment they cross the border, things turn because look at Austin, 97. He's butting into the biggest face that wrestling has possibly ever seen. 97, they flopped in Calgary. That arena, according to Jim Ross, and I will believe him because by God, that arena was apparently shaking.
Whoa.
If you watch, it was not just a boo, yay, boo, yay. It was the whole audience booing Austin. Then when Bret punched, the whole audience cheering Bret. And it was like a 45-minute match, too. You just don't see that in a lot of tag matches, let alone 10-mans. And it wasn't an elimination match.
Matt, I want to go watch this.
Can
now.
we get this on YouTube?
Oh, yeah.
You can get this on the WWE Network.
It's on the network too.
That's in your house.
It is appointment viewing, and it wasn't just when they crossed the border. That was that period of a year where they went to Germany, they went to the UK, and it felt like the rest of the world was ganging up on America and Shawn Michaels and
Austin.
And the fact that they had Davey Boy Smith as a part of the Hart Foundation representing the UK, and that was a special time in wrestling. I really like that pick.
Especially has to be something said about a 10-man tag match. The whole, this guy's coming in, that guy's coming in. So you're watching that match, you think, all right, these two are going at it, but then it mix it up, and then mix it. I can't wait to see this.
Look at the names on that list.
There's a lot
though.
of drama. Yeah.
Look at how good the names are. Austin, Bret, Owen, Bulldog, Pillman. Whether you want to think Goldust is good or not, guys, he's on there.
That's for another podcast.
Or if you want to go sports, the sports world, Ken Shamrock.
World's most dangerous man, right after me. Zach Bye and Tig, what you got one on your list where you think, man, I don't know if you guys are going to be with this match?
Well, he's bringing up Stampede Wrestling, different organizations and stuff. I want to mention this one because this almost didn't make the list, and then I said, I remember this as a kid. It's interesting. 1984. I wasn't even watching wrestling. I discovered this late 80s. ESPN used to run Legends of World Class
That's
Championship
right.
Wrestling.
Yes.
Yep.
And they'd show the old wrestling episodes, right? 45,000 fans. The Parade of Champions.
Whoa.
Texas Stadium.
Holy shit.
It was Kerry Von Erich versus Ric Flair. Kerry Von Erich with World Class. Ric Flair, the NWA champion. I loved how they brought the different organizations in, and they did it as a tribute to David Von Erich, Kerry's brother, who had passed away recently. So they did the annual Parade of Champions. The match was dedicated to David Von Erich. Ric Flair with the hip toss. I remember seeing it in the montage of the Legends of Class.
Yeah.
What is it? The Legends of World Class.
Yes.
Where he goes for the hip toss, Ric Flair. Kerry turns it around, backslide. 1, 2, 3. Pins Ric Flair. 45, 50,000 fans going nuts. Kerry Von Erich wins the NWA title, only to lose it, I believe, a couple of weeks later. I know Ric Flair didn't want to do that, I understand, but out of respect for the Von Erich family, they had Kerry win the title, but lose it a couple of weeks later, all to dedicate it to David Von Erich.
I love
it was
Tiggs,
great.
First of all, your presence here and your context from back in the day is so much appreciated.
I'm a dinosaur. What can I say?
know.
Like
I
Vinny said.
love it. See, but that's the thing with wrestling.
Yeah.
You can always harken back, and these lists are so subjective. The fact that you would throw in a Kerry Von Erich match in there. Kerry Von Erich, you talk about a physical, stiff, working wrestler. Yep. I mean, he used to go, and you could see, when he's, hitting guys in the ring, that was not an enjoyable experience for whoever he was wrestling.
Yep.
And he had one foot. for the last 4 years of his career, he wrestled with 1 foot. His whole WWE run, 1 foot.
That really annoyed me when they brought him in. As they called him just Texas Tornado.
But that was Vince McMahon wanting to change names. That was him wanting to have the ownership.
But any true wrestling fan knew that was Kerry Von Erich.
The modern-day warrior, Kerry Von Erich. There
warrior.
were already too many warriors. And the Ultimate Warrior, Road Warrior, The Warrior.
Yeah.
Yep.
But just talking about Kerry Von Erich, isn't he the ultimate face? You're talking about a physical specimen.
I don't think he was ever a heel.
We always would want to be on his side.
We talked about the Dallas Sportatorium there, world class, where they had just a little thin ring rope. That, the rope that separated the crowd from the ring, and these women are leaping over, jumping into his arms. It's like, holy crap, security's just, they couldn't do anything. These young women are going nuts. I'm sure Kerry had a field day with the ladies.
Oh, it's good. Back
in the day.
Sure, yeah.
Holy cow.
It looked like a Royal Rumble at the Marriott.
So that's one, that's mine that probably was on
I always wonder now as a wrestling fan, Flair comes over, and we've seen Flair for almost 30 years. I kind of wish we would have seen more of Kerry Von Erich. I know we bring up Texas Tornado and all that, but I wanted more of him. We feel like almost we get cheated as wrestling fans. We didn't get more of Kerry Von Erich.
And unfortunately, you got depression following that family, and they've all suffered, and then in turn, indirectly from afar, we've all suffered because of that.
Yep.
All right, number 4 on my list. The Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, Mr. WrestleMania. At WrestleMania 19 at Safeco Field against Chris Jericho. One of my all-time favorite matches. Such high energy. This was the second half of Michaels' career that, Vinny, you were referring to earlier in the podcast. One of the best wrestling matches I've ever seen.
So we're talking about Jericho Undisputed Championship Jericho, so kind of early 2000s.
Yeah.
And those were the favorite tights, Jericho. I love those tights. The bright, the baby blue tights.
Hey, you're allowed to say that on this podcast because I can sit here and I can talk wrestling attire here until the cows come home. Real quick,
he had some good ones.
Title on the line though, or no in that match?
No
title.
No, there was no title. But it was one of these things where Tiggs, you brought up WrestleMania 3. And Michaels versus, Macho Man versus Steamboat, which happens to be number 3 on my list, that it was not intended to be the talk the next day or the next year or 2 decades later. That was supposed to be Hogan and Andre.
Yep.
But that match stole the show. That was the true show-stealing match. Yep. WrestleMania 19.
And that show was packed.
It was packed. Everyone's on that card. That Shawn Michaels Chris Jericho match, I remember watching that night and saying, I don't know how this match can be topped, and I was proved right. It wasn't. And after all these years later, it sticks out. It's number 4 on my list.
I think I wanted to put that on my list. I did. They had a good feud in 2007, I believe, 2008. Where it was Michael's wife that got hit by Jericho, and he put Michael's head through a screen. I wanted to put that on the list. It just didn't make there. But that match, easily best match of that night.
It's amazing. 3 different Shawn Michaels WrestleMania matches on 3 different lists. Just shows again how amazing that guy was at the biggest shows of shows.
Yep.
All right, my one I'm going to toss on here is we've talked about matches we remember. We have those moments that stick out to us as kids. My number 3 here is 1997 Halloween Havoc.
Oh my.
Rey Mysterio Jr.
Who's that jumping out the
versus
sky?
Eddie Guerrero for the Cruiserweight Championship. If Rey loses, he gets demasks.
Yes.
This is the first pay-per-view I ever got as a kid. First one I ever got. So it was right before my 8th birthday. And I get it. I'm going nuts. And Ray's my guy because, again, WCW era at that time at the Monday Night Wars, I can't stay up till 10:30. So, I get the cruiserweights is what I get.
Yeah. More cool tights.
But if you go and watch, the Eddie Guerrero talking about his career, what his favorite match was, they say Halloween Havoc 97. You watch Rey Mysterio, he'll say Halloween Havoc 97. And what happens in that match, go back and watch it. No one can do what they did in that match. No one's hitting Hurricane Rondas. As great as Shawn Michaels was, he's not doing backflips and somersaults and all these moves.
Yeah, that was next level in-ring stuff.
Eddie
He
Guerrero's,
did that after he bumped.
Right. Eddie Guerrero's doing these frog splashes, these flips, and they're nailing everything like it's poetry in motion. And you're getting Ray when he's little Ray, not juiced up Ray, when he's flying like a little gymnast, and you're getting heel Eddie with the mask. It's just the perfect for that rivalry and for what it meant and what they could do in their style of wrestling compared to other wrestling we see. I just loved the match.
Where was that on your list now?
That is number 3 for me.
That match, to me, I think showcased the cruiserweights really for the first time. I mean, they had really good matches, 96 with Malenko and with Guerrero. But 97, I think that was where the cruiserweights showed we're not just 200-pound guys.
Yeah.
We can do more. Case in point, they both became champions less than 10 years later.
That's right. They both became world champions later. So
You put me onto that match a couple months ago.
Oh, that's like when I first meet people. Like when I know they like wrestling.
I
tell
met
them,
Gaz. I met Gaz. I was like, "Hey, I'm Zach." He's like, "Hey, I'm Gaz. I know we don't know each other, but you got to go watch Albany." I'm like, "Cool.
I'll see you later.
Nice
I'll see you around
to
the
meet
office. So, Tig, you have homework out. 97 Halloween Hack. I think I did the same thing to Vinny, by the way.
I've seen the match.
I know I saw it. I got to refresh my memory, though.
Well, it was like one of these things. Sometimes these matches that have high points and then they stall, and then they have like these high points and then they stall. I call them stop and go matches. That match was like the Autobahn. The guys just go and go and go and go. So talented, so synchronized. A work of art, man.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so we're getting maybe closer to the top of people's lists here. I actually was wrong about some. Go ahead, Zach. I got something wrong about The Undertaker. I did have an Undertaker match.
Well,
on
I
my
wanted
list.
to throw. I still didn't give my number 5 yet
Okay, yeah, go
because I emptied myself out on the very first in the very first minute of the podcast.
Need another rag?
True to form, story of my
Filled
life.
back up.
Number 5 on my list. This might be a curveball. See if you can keep your eye on it before it sinks into the catcher's mitt. TLC 2. WrestleMania 17.
On my list.
Oh, that's on your list?
On my list.
Honorable mention for me.
Edge and Christian, the Dudleys, the Hardys. You talking about moments? What is
that
a
was an
snapshot
insane
that
match.
a
Insane.
snapshot that sticks out? Jeff Hardy
spear.
dangling
The spear.
from the arena ceiling, holding on like the poetic. He's holding on to the championships, and Edge spears his ass, and that place completely becomes undone. That was like, and I remember at the end of the night when they did. I don't know if you guys remember the theme of that night was the Limp Bizkit.
My way or the highway.
Right. Yeah.
I did it all for the nookie, no?
No, it wasn't that one. But at the end of the night, I remember they ran like a montage back and they played that song and the music stopped and the bulbs were going off and it was just like boom, and they dropped the beat with the spear. That match to me, like when I'm meeting new people that don't really like wrestling and I want to introduce them to it, I don't want to show them the Iron Man match because it's drawn out. It's classic wrestling.
You gotta like wrestling to like it.
Right,
Yeah.
you have to be a wrestling guy to like it. This is the match that I show them. I'm like, you don't watch wrestling? I'm going to show you something fucked up. Check this out.
Or they
TLC, tables, ladders,
Yep.
chairs. Oh my.
They
tables,
use the other
ladders, chairs.
F word
Oh
where they're
my.
like, hey, it's fake. Oh, it's fake? He just fell off a 20-foot ladder. How do you explain that? It's like David Blaine stuff we're
Watch
doing
a
here.
swanton from 19 feet up in the air. That match to me, it's not gimmicky just because it's TLC. It's an unbelievable showcase of talent.
I don't think the TLC then was gimmicky. TLC with any of those combatants was not gimmicky. Case in point of an Edge and Cena in 06. Awesome match. Because Edge was in it. TLC was Edge Christian, the Dudley Boys, and the Hardy Boys.
Yep.
And every one of them could do awesome in a TLC match. That match is on my list at number 5. So we share that, Zach.
Wow, and I had it at number 6, by the way, so I was really close to making my top 5.
That stole
And
the
at 5.
show of that night, and yet again, like such a good positive for that match to steal the show at WrestleMania 17, the height, like the eclipse of the Attitude Era. That was when things started to decline. That was when things started to get bad. But that show, to me, best Mania of all time. That show was highlighted by that match without a doubt. Best match on the card.
I joked around about how there's certain matches that you watch and you think, okay, you can't get a crowd reaction like Von Erich or Flair, and you can't do a certain thing in the ring like Michaels. That match, I don't know if anyone wanted to do what they did. Who wants to get speared hanging by the briefcase? Who wants to jump off the 20-foot ladder?
But they did.
But all those guys are so young, they're like, okay, either we do this.
Trying to get over.
Or someone else
young,
is going to do
they're
it.
hungry, they're
Right.
going to do whatever
And
it
Jeff
takes.
got an IC title run only for like a week. 2 weeks later, beating Triple H.
Yeah.
But this is what makes wrestling unique. You have a high moment like that at WrestleMania, guess what happens? You live forever.
And I have to grab that segue right there because that goes to my number 2 match for exactly that reason. I think just by me saying that, you guys know where I'm going. Where a certain moment of what you do in a match will live forever. And it's 1998, King of the Ring, Hell in the Cell, Mankind then versus The Undertaker. Now, is it the most technical, great match? Of course not. Is it a match that goes for 45 minutes? If you count how long Foley's in the thing get pushed, maybe. But that is a situation where it's a famous match. It's a match that, again, you grab WWE Network, you say, go watch this. No one's ever going to forget that. Now, it's not pro wrestling. Is it a slow speed car accident? Maybe. But it's it is iconic. It is nuts. It is insane. It is entertaining.
Yep.
If anything, to the last degree, it is an entertaining watching how far Foley's going to go in that
Insane.
match. Yeah.
And only one of those big spots was even planned.
Which is even crazier to think
The
about.
only spot in that match that was planned was going through the cell. Going through. Going off, that was last minute. You think Vince McMahon would have approved
going
that?
Hell no.
off or going through?
No,
Going through was planned.
Going off
Was not.
Vince is not signing off on that a couple years after Owen falls from the top of
That
the
was
arena.
a little before Owen, but still.
Oh, was it? That was before Owen?
Owen was 99.
Good
but-
call.
But
Good
hang
call.
on,
Still.
but going through the cage, I thought it was planned that they'd fall. Not Foley hits the back of his head and gets knocked out in the
Right.
ring.
Well, look at if you watch that match again, guys. Look at the cage where he gets thrown through.
Well, when they start to step on it, it starts to buckle even a
Yep.
little
yeah,
bit.
yeah, but okay, let's say, for instance, it is planned for them to go through. Like choke slam, all right, he hits the can. That's not how they planned that spot to go
No,
down.
he got
No.
knocked out. He lost a tooth on that spot.
Right, and I think the chair hit him on the way
Yes,
down.
It did.
as
That's
fell.
what I was
The
about.
chair
Thank
fell
you,
from the
thank you.
top.
Yes.
That match, I wanted to put it on here.
It's just not.
It's
a
so
wrestling.
it's just so, right. I would like to hop to my number 4 just
Yeah,
because
do
I
it,
haven't
do
said
it.
it. You're all gonna hate me. Just saying.
Uh-oh. Crowd's about to go heel.
Hate you more?
As the heel turns.
2011. This is actually as the heel turns because somebody turned in this match, and that would have been CM Punk. Money in the Bank 2011, Chicago, Illinois, CM Punk versus John Cena for the WWE Championship with the stipulation John Cena would be fired if Punk won, and he didn't get fired. Damn it. But
Oh, wait, the guy didn't get fired or retired after they lost? I
Right.
thought that was a requirement. in wrestling.
that match, though, for me, got me back into wrestling. That match, that feud, the pipe bomb, that got me back in. That is why CM Punk is one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. That match, if you look at the crowd, yes, you can say, Chicago, CM Punk, of course they loved Punk. I don't care. That crowd was electric. Even when people are in their hometown, there are still detractors. When he's sitting after he wins on the apron and blows a kiss to Vince McMahon, goes to the crowd, goes home, and takes a photo of the belt in the fridge. That match to me, I could not leave that off this list.
That's number 4 on your list?
That's number
Is that
4.
on either of your guys' list?
No.
Because I'm going to blow your mind.
No Cena on my list.
That's number 1 on my list.
Oh, no, really?
That is the
Kidding.
number 1
Really?
match on my list. Now, Vinny did a great job of explaining it.
Now, are you a Cena fan? Or
I'm
you
not
a
even.
CM Punk
I'm not.
fan?
Okay, so I liked
Cena can
Cena.
work.
I liked Cena when he was doing the whole like white rapper thing. I thought it was funny. Like, I remember
Yeah.
laughing out loud to it.
What?
But like Vinny said, like at that point from like 2008, I guess people call it the PG era, from like 2008 to like mid 2010, it was really stale. I thought the product, and maybe it wasn't attached to me like a kid was liking it. But he hits that pipe bomb, and like the whole wrestling like changes. Everybody's watching it again, and watching that match. Like I remember having friends over who hadn't watched wrestling for years, and my diehard friends like who really like it like us were watching it. And those guys were losing their minds, the non-wrestling fans, because they wanted CM Punk. It felt like Conor McGregor fighting in Ireland. It felt like Floyd Mayweather fighting in his hometown. It felt like this big fighter stepping into the ring. I don't want to go as far as gladiators, but you guys know where I'm going here. Like, this is his home turf.
And that was Punk's first big win.
Right, and it's the perfect like wrestling match. Like, okay, great storyline. Fans are on one guy's side, sort of like the Stampede you guys thing laid out before. Wrestler in his prime in Punk versus the face of the company in Cena with the stipulations and the match quality itself. Like, they go, what, Vinny, 45 minutes?
I think about that,
and everything, you're sitting on the edge like, ooh. And I remember watching that as a grown-ass man thinking, well, I know Cena's going to win. Like, they're not going to let Punk win. And then he hits the 3 count.
Yeah.
And
listen,
here comes Alberto Del Rio. He'll cash.
He's
in
kicks
the
him
crowd.
in the head.
Like, it was just
It's
such
bedlam.
It was the perfect where you get the payoff as a fan that you want. You get the introduction. You get the storyline. You get it's the perfect wrestling match. Everything about it is just perfect to me. That's why it's number 1.
Watch back the intros into that match.
It's
the
amazing.
entrances.
Amazing.
Here's what I love. It's
One of
in
the best
Chicago.
promos of all time,
Oh,
too,
yes, no
as
doubt.
well.
If not
the
the
promo
best.
to that match
Amazing.
is like...
When you see Cena get in the ring, I've seen him do this twice, where he gets in the ring and he's being booed so hard, head down to the mat, holding the belt up.
ECW 06 is the other one, right?
ECW is the other one. They boosted his music up to drown out the booze. Watch that on the network. The bass just gets loud as hell. That was how electric that crowd was. Love Cena or not, man, he's left a mark.
There's sure as shit left a mark. He is the mark.
Oh, yeah.
Like he has been wrestling for over a decade. He is to kids who are,
he can go.
19 right now. He was their Hogan for the previous 15 years of their life. And it's tough for me to get emotionally invested nowadays like you were when you were younger because it just can't happen. You're only that impressionable once. But that being said, I can look and recognize you don't hold the burden of that company on your shoulders for as many years as Cena had without being an all-time great.
I do think, though, that's part of the failure of why today's product is the way it is, though. Sadly.
Maybe because it's a generational thing. Like, you bring it up. Hogan's one generation. Austin's another generation. Cena's another. And who knows what the next generation will be. And that's why that match is so amazing, because it's like, that is the Steamboat Savage of a generation. That's the Austin Rock of a generation. All right, we got 2, 3 left. I feel like we're missing some people.
I'm missing my number 2, but
Okay.
let's see
All
if
right,
somebody else
let's
has
hit
something
Tiggs.
Let me
else.
get to this one and then go to your number 2, and I'll tell you what I have for the number 2. But
Might take a while. Number 2s usually do.
Speaking of number 2s, I did one
Long
earlier.
sip.
Don't go in that bathroom. Number 4 on my list. I'm surprised I haven't heard it from anybody. Bret Hart, Mr. Perfect, SummerSlam 91, IC
wow.
title.
It's a great match.
2 of the great technical wrestlers in there. Bret Hart with the sharpshooter on Mr. Perfect. After a great match, he taps out. Bret wins the IC title. That's my number 4.
He stretched the hell out of him on that sharpshipper. He's
it was great.
Bret's like in like a recliner, just like
he was
bending
leaning
the
back.
vertebrae.
Leaning back deep on that
Yeah,
one.
Tiggs, I love that match,
That was a
and
good
I
one.
referenced that a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about the greatest wrestlers to never win the title. Perfect was on that, and that's one of the highlights of his career. I love that match. I will probably watch that match another 5 or 6 times before I die because I love those 2 guys in their prime. They both look great. They work great together. Like,
Not on your list, though.
no, it's not on my list, but wrestling is often, I compare it to dancing or, synchronized swimming. You need to be on the same page with your partner. If your dancing partner sucks, you're not going to come off as some great dancer. You need to both be together, and in that match, Perfect and Bret Hart, it's just like 2 classically trained wrestlers, and that's a great one.
Yep. Thanks.
It's kind of like Eddie versus Ray, what I brought up earlier, where they know what they're doing. Like, this is them. Watch, pay attention. They're going to do something in the ring because of how they're trained, how they work, their styles that nobody else can do.
Yep.
They're going to blow everybody else off the card. I like it too.
I believe that match opened the card, too.
Wow.
SummerSlam 91,
It's tough to live up to.
Garden.
Just cancel the
It may
pay-per-view after that. Just be done with it.
And that pay-per-view, I mean, it had some decent matches, but like nothing like that. Nothing even close.
What did you have for number 2?
So number 2, definitely not shit. Bret Hart versus Steve Austin, WrestleMania 13.
That
in
is
an
my
I
number
Quit
2.
match.
Let's
Wow.
go.
You guys had 2 and 5 the same.
Yes.
Look at this. Double turn in that match. Hart was a face going in, Austin was a heel. They left on the opposite side.
Yeah, that was a great match.
The things that they did in that match, using the stairs, using chairs. They hadn't used chairs like that before. The blood, which wasn't supposed to happen, and apparently McMahon was very PO'd about that. Because if you look...
Couldn't have been too pissed off because he made it into a fucking T-shirt 3 weeks later.
Brett Austin didn't cut himself in that. Brett cut him. Like, it wasn't the hard way either. Brett took the razor. Hey, buddy, helping you out. But no, that match...
They planned that out, though, right?
Austin and Brett did.
And Brett, okay.
That match, just the way it was laid out, everything, the way it went, the sharpshooter or the figure four, you should probably say, on the steel, the ring post, using the extension cords to choke them out with.
Yeah, took the bell from behind and
passing out without tapping out.
I got to go tonight and watch that again because it's coming back to me how great it was.
Once a year I watch that.
How great that was.
It's so good. I think you could point back in Austin's career, and that is the tipping point that puts him over the top into a superstar.
Without Brett,
I was going to say a lot of Austin's ascension into superstardom and onto the Mount Rushmore of wrestling, in my humble opinion, is due to that feud with Bret Hart. And that match with Shamrock as the special enforcer is a work of art. It's number 2 on my list. And me, like you, I spin that like a great oldie, probably about once a year.
Well, the other thing is, too, think of it this way. That was a feud that went about a year. That feud started September of 96, and Austin egging on Brett with the Pillman stuff. That was centered around Brett. So the Pillman gun scene at Raw, centered around Brett.
I think you could even dial it before then, because do you remember was that Royal Rumble? No. When Austin keeps on throwing guys out and he's checking his watch, right? And he's sitting up in the corner, and then Hitman's music hits.
That was Rumble 97?
That was Rumble 97. Yes, it was. You're right. You're right.
To the WrestleMania match, to the Canadian Stampede.
Yeah.
So I've got 2 matches with them on my list. To go from that, then Owen. That's part of Bret Hart. That went until the screw job.
It's an amazing match. You get that emotion, and they get the double. Like, you want the result to be that too. And sometimes
Shamrock is the special enforcer too.
Yeah, and like the fan, I think maybe not, but I feel like the fan in the '90s, like it was such a different era of the Monday Night Wars that could have blown up in their face, couldn't have? Like Bret Hart's been the face of the company for years, and if it didn't work, they could have said no to Austin. They could have embraced the Bret, but it did. Like,
Austin was such a good heel; it would have worked either way.
Right, and it's a credit to their performance.
But you say it could have worked either way. I don't think so, because wrestling promoters had tried to put him over in years past, and it didn't work until that character fused with the Hitman. That's my takeaway.
He had to shave his head. That was the big reason why. I'm just saying.
So I think you have 1 left. You have your number 1 left, right?
Correct.
You have your number 1 left. How many you got left on your list?
I went with my number 1 actually already.
Yeah, actually, me too. Me too. My number 1's the Iron Man match.
Wow.
Yeah, we all have the number. I had the Savage Steamboat.
Yep. All right, so let's run down our top 5 each.
Who wants to go first? Because my phone's down.
I'll run through because I got to mention the number 2 that I have on here. Number 5, Kerry Von Erich versus Ric Flair for the NWA Championship. Kerry Von Erich wins at Texas Stadium. Number 4, IC title match, Bret Hart versus Mr. Perfect. Bret Hart wins the title. Number 3 was... What was number 3? Oh, the Iron Man match.
Yes.
All right, Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels. What was that, WrestleMania 12?
Yep.
Number 2... Ricky Steamboat and Ric Flair. One of the many matches, Chi-Town Rumble 89.
The Chi-Town Rumble.
Wow.
My buddy loves this
This was an awesome match. You got the flying crossbody, Ricky Steamboat going for the flying crossbody on the Flair. Nails Flair, but also hits the referee in the process. Referee gets knocked out. Teddy Long comes in.
Teddy Long.
Ric Flair gets up, goes to do the figure 4. Again, Steamboat, like shades of WrestleMania 3, the small package. Rolls up Flair. Teddy Long gets the 3 count.
That match
Steamboat
just
wins
my
the
list.
world title.
Wow.
So that was number
Rumble.
2. They wrestled many great matches. Of course, that one stuck out for me.
The Clash of Champions 6 with them was great too.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Randy Savage, Steamboat, WrestleMania 3, my favorite match ever.
I love your list, Tiggs.
Thank you.
I love it. I love it. Number 5 for me is TLC 2, WrestleMania 17, Edge, Christian, Dudley's, Hardy's. Speaks for itself. If you've seen it, it probably left their impression on you. Number 4, HBK, Chris Jericho, WrestleMania WrestleMania 19 at Safeco Field in Seattle. Classic. Number 3, much like Tig's Macho Man Steamboat, just a little bit higher up on my list, but ultimate show stealer. The fact that it's still held in such high regard this many decades after, kind of on its face, just tells the story. Number 2, Brett versus Austin, WrestleMania 13, the I Quit match, and or the submission match. And then number 1, in my humble opinion, the greatest match of all time, the Iron Man match.
All right.
Great list.
My top 5. Number 5, I've got TLC 2 like Zach. Gotta watch it. I feel like wrestling, gotta watch it. Number 4, Punk vs. Cena, Money in the Bank 2011. Number 3 on my list is Canadian Stampede. There are too many guys in that match to name, so I'm going to say Hart Foundation versus Austin and his men. Number 2 is Brett versus Austin, WrestleMania 13. And number 1 are both of the Undertaker and Shawn Michaels matches from 2009 and 2010 at WrestleMania 25 and 26.
In my final top 5 matches of all time, Kurt Angle versus the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 21. Ricky Steamboat versus the Macho Man Randy Savage in Mania, which we've touched on a bit. 1997 Halloween Havoc, Rey Mysterio Jr. versus Eddie Guerrero for the Cruiserweight Championship. Hell in the Cell 1998, Mankind versus The Undertaker. And number 1, that Money in the Bank match, CM Punk versus John Cena for the world title. Also, quick honorable mention, I had that TLC match at 6. And if we got to give the ladies some love, I tossed Sasha and Bayley in Brooklyn TakeOver in 2015 as the greatest female divas, whatever you want to call that match. That's the greatest women's match of all time, and take that for what it is. It is As the Heel Turns podcast. We're back again. Vinny, what do you want to say?
I wanted to throw out the 2 other honorable mentions I never even mentioned.
Yeah, go ahead.
Daniel Bryan versus Bray Wyatt from Rumble of 2014.
That is a fantastic match, and that gets lost on that card.
Yes, it does.
The crowd starting to turn on people at the later Rumble.
Yes, it does. And the other one, also a Rumble match. Triple H, Cactus Jack, Rumble 2000.
That match.
That's another great match.
That match, I'm glad you brought that up, because that is the most, we probably all have one of these matches in your lives where you've actually physically been upset, as a kid, no! That was the match I've been the most upset about, because Foley's winning that entire match, and Triple H does some type of heel move at the end to win it, and I was shaking as a kid, I'm done watching wrestling.
That match made Triple H. That match made Triple H too. Nobody believed him as a main eventer until that match.
I'm a little bit disturbed right now because there was 2 guys left off all of our lists. Hulk Hogan was not on one of our lists, and neither was The Rock.
Yeah.
Was not involved in
Triple
any
H, correct?
one of our, and neither was Triple H. But that just illustrates to me just how, because I will acknowledge that those 3, Triple H, Hogan, Rock, those are probably 3 of the best 10 wrestlers of all time.
Yeah.
But when we talk about subjective lists like this, and this is what makes As the Heel Turns unique, how could I tell the Tig Man that those 5 matches aren't his favorite? How could I tell you that King of the Ring 98 doesn't belong on your list? These are our individual lists from our frontal lobe, and that's what makes it unique.
I must say, saying that Triple H didn't make the list, an honorable mention, one that would have made the list, which I thought was a great match, Undertaker, Triple H, WrestleMania 28.
Yeah,
that's a great one.
Another great match, too. So if you want to let us know your list, comment below. Let us know on YouTube. It's going to be up online as well as the Heel Turns podcast. Get ready. Suggest some new topics coming up. We're talking about maybe the top 5 entrances, the intros of all time in wrestling history. It's a future one
Ric
coming
Flair,
up.
all the way.
I cannot wait for that list. Until next time, it is As the Heel Turns. We'll talk to you again soon.